Sovereignty reigns supreme at the Jim Dandy. Let's discuss what it means for the future of the 3-year-old division and the classic division as well. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here, along with my colleague Kaylie Shapiro at NYRA Bets, and we are here to talk about the reaction to Saturday's Jim Dandy, in which we saw the Kentucky Derby winner and the Belmont Stakes winner, Sovereignty, continue his impressive march through his 3-year-old campaign by winning the Jim Dandy. Now, before we get to that, I want to encourage you to press that like and subscribe button on NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the network, so make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. Kaylie, I want to cede the floor to you. You have been all over this horse for many, many months, going back to that street sense as a 2-year-old at Churchill Downs. You had the utmost confidence in him yesterday. He came through at a short price, 1-2 favorite, ran a 104 buyer speed figure against Baeza. What were your immediate reactions to that performance?
Well, definitely took a deep breath after, because as confident as I was in the horse, I was running around all week telling everyone, you can put your mortgage on this horse.
She's
you can
not
put
lying.
whatever on the horse. And he did come through. Definitely was pretty sharp out of the gate. That was, talking about it from the break. That was my first reaction. Yeah. Pretty surprising to see him that close to Mo Plex at the start of the race. And then you could see he was taken back a little bit. He came off the bit for a little bit, and then he re-engaged. So definitely a really impressive performance. We know that each time this horse kind of shows a new dimension, which just makes him even more dangerous as the top 3-year-old, because he's not so dependent on any setup that he gets. He kind of just finds a way to make it work every time because he's just that good.
He really is. And so let's take a look at this race, actually, and we'll pull up the view of it from yesterday, and let's take it just straight
they're in the gate
break. And
right they're off in the Jim Dandy, presented by Mohegan Sun.
On the outside,
and Mo Plex
goes up,
breaks alertly.
Kind of
Baeza is up close, and Sovereignty very sharp out of the gate.
I thought
right off.
Yeah, Sandman didn't really show much in terms of more added speed. I mean, maybe a little bit, but Hill Road's so slow out of the gate that just getting in front of him didn't really change much. But you see, going around that first turn, it's Mo Plex up on the lead, and there's Sovereignty sitting second. And Baeza with Hector Berry's aboard is sitting a nice tracking trip third, Sandman fourth, Hill Road fifth, and kind of what we thought it was going to be going into that turn in the backstretch.
Yeah, definitely. And we know that Baeza would have been able to sit, as close as he's sitting here. But I think that he had to work pretty hard to sit there.
Yeah.
Definitely looks like it. I mean, he's not going easy by any way. If you look at the way Junior has his hands on Sovereignty, he's not asking for him to really be up there. And you can even see
here, it's a little interesting because he starts to fade back and
he's in last.
Yeah.
Which is really, really impressive. I mean, when you think about it, what horse goes, all right, let's just let Baeza get by us. Who cares? Yeah. We're going to get the job done anyway. And Junior timed it, pretty perfectly.
Yeah.
And you have to give it to Baeza. I know we're talking about Sovereignty. Baeza ran a really big race here. I think he ran his heart out to come so close to this horse. And that's an accomplishment. I mean, it's not Baeza's fault that he's in the same crop as a horse that could be one of the best horses we've seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And here in this stretch, obviously Sovereignty re-engaged around that turn. And Junior goes to the crop once right there. Says, all right, let's go. And then just shakes the reins from there and just keeps him straight, basically. Knows he has Baeza put away. Barrios giving him an aggressive hand right there. But, yeah, it was never a doubt. And then quite a gap back to the next three. So those top two really did distinguish themselves. As I said, it was an impressive showing, and one where, a horse like that, you just don't see many horses come along like that very often to run that type of a race, to show the versatility of getting out there up front. And then Junior, I think we talked about this a little right after the race, almost the idea that maybe you're almost a little too close to the pace and you want to give the horse a little bit of a breather to make sure the horse has plenty when you ask him a second time around. And then, he seemed to catch a second wind when he had Baeza to run at. Once Baeza got ahead of him.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think it's that's a perfect reason. It definitely shows that they didn't want this horse to have to work so hard in this race.
Right.
They're saving him for the big dance. I think they're going to unleash him for the Travers. But, you bring up the point about letting Baeza get ahead and giving Sovereignty a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
And that's what helped Sovereignty get the job done so easily at the end, because he did take that breather. And, Junior even said he rode him in a gallop to the wire. And, Baeza was really being asked, but Baeza did a lot of work up on the front end. That horse, really surprised me. I got a little too cute with Sandman. Clearly the blinkers did not help Sandman whatsoever in a paceless race. But I think Sandman's not really at the level of these horses. We knew that going in. You take a shot thinking the horse was going to be cranked up and maybe the blinkers would help. But definitely I think Baeza cemented himself as a horse that very much belongs going up against Sovereignty and Journalism. We knew it already.
Absolutely.
But I think that Baeza is kind of inching close to Journalism's level, not level of coolness or level of having so much adversity.
Well, he needs to win. That's the big thing.
Right?
Progress, exactly. And so I think that's the biggest thing with Baeza is you feel bad because the horse, now 4 straight triple-digit buyer speed figures, if I'm not mistaken. Second, has basically beaten everybody in this crop outside of the top 2. And it's not his fault he ran into 2 really great horses. I mean, Journalism on any other year would be a Triple Crown winner. And Sovereignty, if he were to run in the Preakness, would have been a Triple Crown winner, already won the other 2 legs, and is a perhaps generational talent. And Baeza's just stuck third behind him. But you're right. The gap between those top 3 and everyone else is substantial.
And you can see it in the race. I mean, the gap between
an 11
Sovereignty, Baeza, and the rest of the field is insane. I mean, I knew Mo Plex that going into this, the horse can get 1 mile and an eighth in the Ohio Derby against a weaker field. He's a very nice horse.
Yeah.
But a mile and an eighth against the best 3-year-olds in the country, and also up on the lead, it puts him at a disadvantage given his pedigree.
Yeah.
And he looks physically like a sprinter to me. So that was definitely a concern going into it. But I know one of my immediate thoughts after the race was that Baeza could be pretty deadly at 1 mile and an eighth. Maybe this horse is even better at 1 mile and an eighth, while Sovereignty seems to get better sitting a little further off, going 1 mile and a quarter. Baeza might be pretty deadly at 1 mile and an eighth distance. And you think about the McKinsey influence and all of that. It's pretty interesting.
It is. And I think it's interesting to think that what is everybody's best distance? And Sovereignty is so versatile. He's won at 1 mile and a 16th. He's won at 1 mile and an eighth. He's won at 1 mile and a quarter. So he can win at a few different distances, obviously. Journalism, we've seen win at a few different distances as well, going through the preps and leading up to the Santa Anita Derby, and then obviously to Haskell recently. I know there's some who believe that Journalism's best distance is 9 furlongs as well, in 1 mile and an eighth. And, Baeza certainly does seem to be probably best at that 1 mile and an eighth. I don't think the 1 mile and a quarter is ideal. But, what's going to be interesting is what John Sheriffs does, because now they got to come back in a month. And in a month, we got the Travers. And you said it, I said it. It certainly did not appear as if Sovereignty was anywhere near cranked for this race.
No.
And I would say 80%,
not 75%. Even to a fitness level.
No, I would agree, not even to a fitness level. And, I think it's interesting, if you're John Sheriffs, what do you do with Baeza? Do you run the horse back in the Travers? Or do you try to? The initial plan before the Jim Dandy, and he had been very clear, was the goal is the Travers. So the goal was always to run Baeza in the Travers. Now, that's admirable, but I also have to think that at some point, Baeza needs to have a breakthrough win. Baeza needs to get a grade 1 because he's sitting on a huge pedigree and he's got a sire deal he's got to think about, and the connections probably have to think about moving on. So at some point, you just can't finish second and third all the time. You got to get a grade 1, maybe the Pennsylvania Derby, something like that. But listen, it's hard to say that because as fans, we want to see that horse run again.
Of course. And I mean, I guess they have 2 options.
Yeah.
They go back to the West Coast and they risk running second to Journalism.
Right.
Or they stay here and they risk running second to Sovereignty. Yeah. Either way, they're going to have to face a horse that they believe or might be better. So I'd imagine, I mean, obviously we hope the horse stays for the Travers.
Of course.
But I think that they would be pretty encouraged by that, given the fact that they've continued to send the horse up against these horses. He didn't finish. I mean, I believe Sovereignty obviously was toying with him a little bit and just went by in a gallop. And I think Baeza ran his heart out to get that close to Sovereignty. But I think the connections are probably going to be maybe encouraged by that. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah, and Baeza is a horse that you and I talked about it during the Belmont Stakes. Physically was not quite with the other two. Mentally was maybe not quite at the other two. You had even said maybe a little bit more later developing. Seems like some of that development's been happening.
Yes.
You give that horse another month, maybe there's even more development, especially if the horse just stays in Saratoga and is able to just kind of get acclimated to the area. And that horse could easily take another step forward. Now, can he do it at 1.25 miles? We'll have to wait and see. But could continue to mature, and that might be the missing ingredient for Baeza.
Definitely. I think it would definitely benefit the horse to stay here to run in the Travers instead of shipping back. And, you know, we all are hoping for that, but I agree. But I think Baeza, I was a little critical of him Belmont week. I didn't think that he looked that great yesterday.
I mean, he didn't look, let's put it this way. He didn't look like the top two.
No.
The top two look so physically different.
And he still doesn't. But
it's closer.
He looked pretty good yesterday.
Yeah.
Even in the paddock. I mean, I was like, you know, he looked like he even grew a little bit.
He did. No, he did. And that was the word coming out of California, was that he had kind of physically matured a little bit in the time off and continued to develop. So again, another month, we'll see what happens. Now, thinking about the Travers moving forward, it does seem like Journalism is probably going to be staying out west and running in probably the Pacific Classic in all likelihood against older horses at Del Mar. A move that makes plenty of sense. That's a horse that's been traveling a lot over the last several months, obviously, and is now going to stay out in California, his home base, but he's never run at Del Mar. So I get it. You got to run over the track at where the Breeders' Cup Classic is going to be, and you go against older competition, which is what you're going to have to do in the Breeders' Cup Classic as well. One of those older horses that he is going to have to run against in all likelihood is a horse named Nysos. And that's a horse that ran last night. And while I know this is a Jim Dandy preview or reaction, we're going to get back to talking about that a little bit. Ultimately, when you look at a horse like Sovereignty and maybe going to the Breeders' Cup Classic, if that's where the connections choose to point, Nysos seems to be a problem potentially out on the West Coast. Because he is a pretty big time horse. And this was his first time. This was stunning to me, Kaylie. This was his first time running 2 turns in 17 months. He hadn't run 2 turns in 17 months, and he goes and wins the San Diego Handicap with a 102 Beyer speed figure. And that was with a little bit of trouble because Flavien Prat couldn't find a spot for him until he got out in the stretch. And then he just shook the reins and see you later.
Yeah, that horse could be a problem for sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see where they all end up. I mean, you'd imagine that they're going to meet in the Breeders' Cup, and
fingers crossed.
Yeah. Everyone wants to see that. I mean, you get better prices on all these horses. Everyone's happy. So let's hope that the best of the best meet up in the Breeders' Cup, obviously, as they probably will. But Nysos could be a really big problem. And that horse, I mean, Bob Baffert training up to anything is always a problem. And this horse seems like a little bit of a freak. So.
Listen, I mean, I think it's so funny because I'm going to talk about a horse in a second as it regards to the Travers that I know you kind of have mixed thoughts about. And I have mixed thoughts about too. I don't want to put that just on you. But sometimes we forget about horses. And Nysos is a horse that I think we kind of forgot about a little bit, in that he's a horse that was an absolute freak as a 3-year-old. And this is a horse that just devastated Stronghold, who was a grade 1 winner out in California, was a Santa Anita Derby winner, and who ran a decent enough Kentucky Derby. He made that horse look like an allowance horse, and he did it under wraps.
Sovereignty would too.
Sovereignty would too, but the point is, as a 3-year-old, Nysos was that horse. He was that guy.
100%.
And we forgot about him because we didn't see him again since the Robert B. Lewis. And he comes back in a grade 1 against Mindframe and Banachek and Buckham Dano.
That's one of the races of the year.
Exactly, right? Second, then goes out to the Tropical Bend and just gets a paid workout and runs a 108 Beyer, and now tries 2 turns for the first time in 17 months, easily dispatches a field, and just, again, looks so good doing it. We forgot about him, and it's great to see him back because it adds another component to the older Sierra Leone fierceness, White Barrio kind of triumvirate that we have running in the Whitney.
It's jam-packed.
It's going to be very jam-packed. And then you add in the Japanese horse, Forever Young. Let's not forget about that guy. I got a sweatshirt for him. That horse is a freak as well. But a horse that we've kind of forgotten about is Magnitude. I wanted to kind of just talk about this because to some extent, Sovereignty has dispatched all challengers, right? Mm-hmm. There's nobody that he's faced that, if Journalism were to come back, I'm not picking Journalism, but he's not going to come back. But there's nobody in that field goal-oriented, potentially coming to the Travers for Bob Baffert, Gosker for Brendan Walsh. Very nice horses. Mm-hmm. Gosker's a horse you and I both really like. Mm-hmm. I'm not picking him over Sovereignty. The one horse that is a new shooter, if you will, is Magnitude, coming off a win in the Iowa Derby. Yes, you heard me, folks, the Iowa Derby. But he's also coming off a win in the Risen Star 5 months earlier, where he wired the field and freaked. And we have to remember, at that time, he became the man after that race immediately because nobody was close to a 108 Beyer speed figure the way he ran it that day. And so everybody went nuts after he won that race. And then he went to the bench for 4.5 months. Came back, ran a 105, if I'm not mistaken, in the Iowa Derby. But listen, I'm skeptical. I know you're a little skeptical, but it's at least a new dynamic that Sovereignty is going to have to deal with.
Yeah, he's an interesting horse.
Because he's front-end speed.
Yeah, so he's an interesting horse. I mean, he's a new face, clearly has a lot of talent, ran that one huge figure in the Risen Star. Yeah. And then, like you said, came in the Ohio Derby.
Iowa Derby.
Iowa Derby.
Listen,
sorry,
I'm Midwestern Derby.
Confusing these two new shooters for Sovereignty. But definitely an interesting horse. But he's, again, going to face a whole new level of horses if he does come to the Travers, which I'm really hoping for. That would be amazing. I can't wait to get a good look at him on the track.
He's out there
leading up to it. Yeah. And I mean, if him and Gosker are all there, they're going to set a really nice pace. So I hope he comes. I really, he doesn't scare me against Sovereignty, but I will look at the race and objectively and even argue another side of maybe a scenario that he could, even though I really just at this point do not believe that he can. Yeah. But let's hope that he comes to the Travers. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It would be. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with the Breeders' Cup Classic. The more horses you get, the better the race is. The better the race is from a fan standpoint, the better the race is from a betting standpoint. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets a better price, the whole 9 yards. So, listen, it was a big performance, and it's one that definitely continues to cement Sovereignty as not just the horse of his generation, but perhaps the horse of many generations. And he's got an opportunity to really continue to stamp that in the Travers, winning the Midsummer Derby. And then, obviously, we'll see where the connections want to go after that. We're hoping for the Breeders' Cup Classic just because you and I are going to the Breeders' Cup Classic. I'd love to see him out there.
That's going to be insane. I just can't get over. I mean, as we continue to watch these races, the main players coming out of them, we're paying attention to what's going on the West Coast. And like you brought up, Forever Young. I mean, I don't even think you can't even draw or dream up a better race than what this is shaping up to be. And even the Travers. I mean, I am so excited.
Yeah.
And one last thing about Sovereignty. Mm-hmm. It was just really cool yesterday to obviously be at the track. I watched with my dad at the TV and you ran to get the content after and I was chasing Sovereignty down, not chasing, but, watching the horse walk back to the barn and just the crowd, how happy everyone was and yelling out his name. It was so cool to see. I mean, and he's just such a happy horse. It's another thing that gets me. When he got back to the barn and he looked so happy. Yeah. He's just a happy horse. He loves his job. Yeah. You love to see it.
And in that regard, it's very similar to Journalism. Mm-hmm. We saw right after Haskell, and it looked like he could have kept running. Mm-hmm. Looked perfectly fine. Sovereignty he was getting carrots from Irma, looking perfectly fine back there. It was great. By the way, anybody's curious, if you want to know how delusional I am as a fan of horse racing and how messed up I am, what was the first thing I said to you after they crossed the wire?
I got mad. You said, I don't even think Sovereignty crossed the wire.
No, he did.
It was right when his nose touched it, you go, Sandman last. And I turned to you, I said, who cares?
I care.
Which really, no, now we know. Blinkers did nothing for Sandman, but we also know that Mo Plex only beat Sandman by half a length.
Half a length. lost to Hill Road by another half a length. That horse they got to put on the turf at some point, Hill Road.
Oh.
Maybe I know Jockey Club Gold Cup, maybe a mile and a quarter.
He might surprise as he continues to get better. I like that horse.
Okay. Anyway, let's try to end this on a positive note here. Not talking about freaking Hill Road. But all right. Listen, it's this is the sort of interactions you get with us when we watch races together. It's a good time, but it's often somewhat delusional as well. Listen, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We got Whitney this week. We got a lot of Whitney content. We're going to do spotlight previews. We're going to have a first reaction because they're drawing the Whitney in about 11 minutes. So we got to get ready for that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But listen, folks, make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. For Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.